Hey, Rob. Sharon, just a reminder, I'm doing my own thing on my wrist.
Absolutely. Always.
I want to be here with all of you. I'm just going to.
It's a good reminder for everyone.
Always
Always
do what I can.
take care of your body. You know what's right for your body, your injuries, for sure. Good morning, everybody. Ooh, so happy to have such a full house. Woohoo, look at this. Great. Okay, so I wanted to teach to the Parsha this week, which is Vayishlach, and it's Jacob is preparing to meet his brother Esau for the first time in many, many years. And he sends ahead angels. That's actually the word used in the Torah. It's angels, melachim, to try to appease and offer tribute. And then he, sends the wives across in certain order and the whole thing. What I want to focus on, though, actually in the Parsha, is the power and importance of names. So in this Parsha, we have multiple examples of how names are very important. So first of all, Jacob wrestles all night long with the angel, and the angel, as a blessing, changes Jacob's name from Yaakov to Yisrael. And then later in the Parsha, when God is addressing Jacob, God again says to him, you're no longer going to be known as Jacob, you're going to be Israel. So a double repeating of that. This is a new naming. We also have at the very end of the Parsha, Rachel gives birth to Benjamin, except she names him Benoni. His name is not originally Benjamin, it's Benoni. And it's interesting because the Tanakh, when you read the, I don't know what your translation is, but it says she named him Benoni, son of my suffering. And then there's all these commentaries. Rashi says because she suffered in giving birth to him and she died as a result of the childbirth. But actually, the word on means potency or strength. So really, she named him Ben-Oni, which is the son of my strength, or of my, maybe like her last effort. Like she gave everything she could to bring this child into the world. And he was the result of all of her last dying strength. I don't know. But then Jacob comes along and instantly renames the baby Benjamin, which is the son of Yamin, is the right side. And Kabbalistically, and the right side is usually associated with the more masculine active, which again is associated with a kind of power in and of itself. But it's also Yamin, it's also associated with chesed, like goodness and kindness. So it's interesting, all these name changes. We also hear about Esau's name. They multiple times they refer to him as Esau, but then they also say, who is also Edom. like there's multiple names. So here's what I wanted to play with in the yoga practice today. I wanted to play with, in the poses themselves, what are the names of the poses? Because many poses have multiple names. And how does a name and how we refer to something, how does it change our interaction with that thing or that person or that experience? When we name how we are feeling in a moment, even naming that feeling, naming a thought, naming an experience can shift, literally shift and change our relationship to that thing, right? So words have power. We know that. We know that in Judaism, God created the world through words. God spoke existence into being. So how powerful are words, that what we speak and say and how we reference something literally creates a reality, right? So this is a practice of just noticing the reality we're creating in any moment through the words we're giving and attaching to that. So let's start with a little bit of meditation. So let's just sit for a moment. So, and you're invited to lie down for this if that's what you need this morning, if that's what your body wants. You can also sit up on a block, sit up on blankets, whatever it is. If when you're sitting in Sukhasana, The word has the root sukh, S-U-K-H, but in Sanskrit, it's often interpreted as easy pose. But sukha is also sweet. It's sweetness. So when you're sitting in your Sukhasana, if your hips are tight and you're gripping and you're off the floor like this, that doesn't feel so sweet or easy. So maybe just understanding the name of the pose can help you align more gently with the intention of the pose. How can you make this pose sweeter and easier? So find what is helpful for you. Just take a moment with your breath. Slow, easy breath. Just letting your awareness this morning drop into this moment. As you inhale, think this moment. And as you exhale, think wonderful moment. So we're naming this present experience as wonderful. We're going to change that word slightly from wonderful to full of wonder. So inhaling and exhaling, just be present to full of wonder. See what that does for you. And taking a moment to check in your own body and in your own heart. What is it I would like to receive from today's practice? And just notice the words that arise for you, the images. What is it you would like to receive? And as you're ready, you can make a transition onto your hands and knees. And we'll actually start in a child's pose. I apologize to the people who have challenging knee issues for child's pose. If child's pose isn't appropriate for you, please feel free to take any other variation. You can do a child's pose on your back by gently just letting your knees drop towards your chest on your back, toes touching. So variations. So you can begin with just attuning to the physical nature of the pose. In your child's pose, as you inhale, the pose allows the lungs really to inflate the back body. So feel the stretch, the spaciousness in the lower back, especially the rib cage. And then working with the name of this pose, what does it feel like? What is your experience of this pose as a child's pose? What does that bring up for you? And how does that shift the breath or the opening or what you're noticing? And as you're ready, come on up to all fours. You can take a look down at your hands, spread the fingers. Make sure you have a nice clasp of the fingertips into the floor so you're not putting all the weight into the wrists. And you can just take some gentle cat and cow poses here. So just arching through the spine in two directions. And do this at your own pace, see what feels good. You do not need to stay on this linear grid line. You can certainly circle around. Whatever your body is telling you it needs right now, just trust that. And then as you're ready, you can tuck the toes. And you're going to lift your knees up off the ground. Let the crown of the head drop towards the ground. Your hips come up high. Downward facing dog. Good. See if you can let your neck lengthen even more. Like drop the crown of your head towards the ground. Think about lengthening the cervical spine. Maybe that brings your gaze between the knees. Maybe it brings your gaze back through the ankles. But keep pressing into the hands, especially that webbing between the thumb and the first finger. Really press that down. It has a tendency to want to roll off the ground, but screw those hands into the floor. Good. And then pedal through your ankles, your heels. So bend one knee, bend the other knee. Just take whatever movement feels right for you. And as you're ready, you will walk your feet to the front of your mat and let yourself hang there for a moment. You can shake yourself out side to side. As you're ready to come up, really engage the feet into the floor. Feel the belly draw in. Slowly, slowly, slowly lengthening the tailbone down as you come up through the body. Find yourself standing. All right. So basic pose in yoga is Tadasana, which we think of as like a strong standing pose. Tadasana literally translates to mountain pose. So let yourself find your strength here. So what is that? What has to happen for you to feel strong and engaged? Maybe you need to spread your feet, make sure you have an inner arch lifting, inner kneecaps are lifting in and up. Where is your pelvis in space? Finds like a neutral pelvis that's not tipping forward or back. Yeah, so you might feel there's a natural engagement in the pelvic floor and the low belly. Notice if there's holding or gripping in the shoulders or the upper chest or lungs. Try to relax that out. Actually take your hands to your shoulders for a moment. Let's just like circle the shoulders, reminding ourselves to relax those shoulders out. You could circle the other way. Legs are still strong here, yeah, but we're trying to remind the upper body that it can Relax out. You might want to do some wiggles. Good. Good. Hands to your heart. You can close your eyes for a moment. I just want you to call to mind an experience of feeling strong like a mountain. That sense of your own steadiness, firmness. I will not be pushed over. Good. And then you can open your eyes, take your arms up overhead. You can gently clasp your left wrist with your right hand and arch yourself over towards the right. Keep pressing down through your left big toe as a grounding anchor, and then feel this nice stretch up the whole left side waist. Breathe into the left lung. And then come on up through the center and switch over to the other side. And come on up, bring your hands back down to your sides. Instead of calling this Tadasana now, we're going to call it Samastiti pose. And Sama means even and balanced. So that's another name for this pose. So close your eyes for a moment, and instead of feeling like a mountain, whatever that brings up, that strength, think of this pose as fully balanced. And how does that change your experience of standing here? You might even play with tipping your weight forward towards your toes, tipping your weight backwards towards your heels. What does it mean to find yourself very even and centered? Is the right ear down from the shoulder, down from the right shoulder, down from the ear, the same level as the left? Like, are you even on one side or the other? Just notice. Good. And then you can take your arms out to the sides. You're going to spin the palms behind you. Reach back behind your back and find some clasp of the fingers. You're going to reach those hands down your back. So you're just opening up the top of the lungs, the shoulders. Shoulder blades are drawing back. Heart opening pose. Good. Breathe here for a moment. And then you can bend your knees and just let yourself stretch over. The arms will lift up off the low back if they're able. So you know what you're able to do. And you don't want to really hyperextend in the elbows or the wrists. So see if you could bring a little bit of softness to the joints. Yeah. Good. Breathe. If you had to name this pose, just feel your experience. What's happening in your body, in your mind, in your heart right now? What would you name this pose? Good. You can release the hands, just fold forward over the legs. And then you're going to sit your tush back behind you. Keep the knees deeply, deeply bent. And you're just going to lift your torso up. And we're coming into Utkatasana, which we often in yoga, we talk about as chair pose. But it actually means awkward seat. Right? And how relevant. It's like, the power of a good name. Keter Shem Tov. You guys know that, right? Like the crown of a good name. It's like, this is a very awkward seat. So what does it require in you? To be with what is awkward, with what is uncomfortable. Good. Stand all the way up, reach up overhead. Exhale, float down over the legs. Inhale all the way back up. And exhale your hands to your heart. Let's do a few of those half sun salutations. Inhale, arms sweep overhead. Exhale, diving out. Inhale all the way, big sweep up to the sky. And exhale, hands to the heart. We're going to move on. Inhale, overhead. Exhale, floating down. This time you're going to inhale to that flat back. Belly draws in, right? Shoulders are up, squeezing that upper back nice and strong and firm here. Exhale, pull down. One more time, inhale to that flat back. Good, good. And then from here, hands are going to come to the floor, fingertips to the floor. You're going to step your right leg way back. The toes are facing forward and the heel is up off the ground. And you're going to lift up to a high lunge. Good. Smile. Woohoo, smile. Yeah, any variation of arms you would like to take here. Okay, your choice. And then what does that feel like to you? This feels very victorious, you know? This feels different, right? Like what this is, sometimes people say cactus arms, right? But this feels different than this, right? Arms out to the side might feel different. So just play with what it evokes in you and what your mind is saying and what those words are bringing up. If you tell yourself here, I feel strong, that's very different than telling yourself here, I feel unstable, right? The mind follows the words we speak to ourselves. So if you say, I'm struggling here, that's different than I'm building strength or I'm building stability or I'm working in the pose. Very different. All right. Everybody arms up and just a little bit of a back bend here. So you really want to feel that stretch in the right hip flexor. We're just lengthening, lengthening, lengthening away from that hip. Good. You're going to float that right hand down to the floor or to a block, and you're just going to take a nice twist towards the left side. That front leg is still nice and bent. Deep bend in that front knee. Try really pulling the belly button into the spine every time you exhale. See what that does in the twist. When you bring that twist awareness into the belly. Good. And then you can float that top arm down to the ground. You're going to step back to a plank pose, which is also sometimes called staff pose. Yeah. Good. And just hold yourself nice and stiff. But again, don't lock out the joints. Keep a little bend in those elbows. Belly is hugging in and up away from the floor. I hope you're starting to shake. Shaking, sweating. What are you telling yourself in the experience of this pose? I'm getting strong. I'm resilient. Lower the knees down to the ground. Slowly, slowly, slowly lower the front body down to the ground. We're going to take a quad stretch here. So bend your right knee first. Reach back. You can rest your head. Good. Some variations on this quad stretch. One is coming up higher on the forearm, using that as like a kickstand to lift through the belly. That's going to deepen the arch. Yeah. Another variation is flexing that foot and kind of gently reaching it back behind you. Be very gentle with your knee though, right? So only do what feels good for you. Another variation, sometimes people like to bring the heel closer to the outer edge of the hip. Yeah, sometimes called frog pose. So just stretching different aspects of those quad muscles. Good. And then let's just switch sides. Go ahead and take the other side here. breathing. Just notice the ongoing commentary that is always in your mind, right? The nature of the mind is to constantly be speaking to you, naming whatever it's naming in this moment. And that happens unconsciously, automatically. So what happens when we bring consciousness to it and we notice that? That's mindfulness. That's the practice of intercepting and beginning to have some discipline around our own thoughts. We're going to take the other variations on this side if you hadn't already. Good. All right. As you're ready, release that foot. Your choice of how you want to get back to down dog. I'll offer you a suggestion of tucking the toes first and reaching those heels back, getting your hands set up underneath your shoulders, wide fingers, elbows hug in, and with a lot of strength, doing a deadlift push-up here from the floor, if you're able. You can also do a variation with your knees, just deadlift push-up from your knees, and then lift the knees into the plank. And ultimately, you're reaching yourself back into a down dog, and hang out and breathe in your down dog. You're going to gaze up between your hands, come up on your tiptoes. You're going to take that right foot all the way up to the front of the mat, and you might need to help it get there. That's okay. We're going to come into that lunge on the second side. So take a look back at your left foot. Make sure toes are pointing forward. Heel is up off the floor. And you're going to lift yourself up to your lunge on this side. Good. So we call this a lunge, but another name for this is crescent. Like, right, we think about Anjaneyasana, which is usually kind of lower with the knee down. We'll take that next. That's a deeper variation. We're not quite there yet. Yeah. But, you know, the word lunge, what does that hold for you? What does that evoke? Maybe not a whole lot. Maybe just the physical alignment of bending the front knee. But if you think about it as a crescent, what does that hold for you? That almost, by its very nature, has more of that arcing feel of, like, you know, like that beautiful kind of shape where now you're leaning away from that front hip. Yeah. Good. Belly's drawing in and up, whatever variation you like here. And we're going to come into the twist on the second side. So the hand comes down to the floor or block. You might need to readjust by shifting that back foot back a little so that you're not up here, right? You really want to give yourself space to drop into that front hip. Arm to the sky, twisting. All right, we're gonna play in that plank one more time. So hands down to the ground. You're gonna come into that plank pose. All right, and from here, you have an option of lowering the knees if you like to or need to, your choice. Or you can keep the toes up. And we're gonna just play with a few push-ups. And you could take elbows wide like a traditional push-up, or you can hug those elbows in more like that chaturanga push-up. That's more tricep. Just do what you can do. Notice your own enjoyment or resistance, your own attachment or aversion to this particular pose. And when you're ready, you can lower the knees and come into a child's pose if that's appropriate for you, or just come lay flat on your stomach, anything that's appropriate for your practice. Notice your heart rate. Notice your breathing. What happens if you, as you observe your breath here, if you use the words slow, calm, inhaling slow, exhaling calm? Does that change the nature of the breath? What happens if you tell yourself here, restorative or restoring? What shifts in your body as you take on that energy of, oh, I'm giving myself time and space to restore. Good. As you're ready, come on up to a hands and knees, down dog, however you want to get there. You can do that push up to the down dog again if you haven't had enough push-ups. From your downward facing dog, lift your right leg high to the sky and just circle that ankle each direction. And then you can bend the knee and you can take big sweeping circles with that knee where it drops down towards the other, towards the floor, and then arcs its way around back to the sky. Good, extend the leg back up to the sky again. You're gonna look forward between your hands. Step that foot all the way through to the front of the mat. If you're able, turn your back foot down and come on up into a warrior two stance. So your warrior two stance, nice and wide, right? Give yourself space for those inner thighs to stretch and separate. The front toes are pointing forward, the back toes are on an angle. Good, and your arms can extend forward and back behind you. And we're just gonna dance the warrior. So even the word dance might evoke for you a sense of beauty, a sense of playfulness, a sense of, just like very authentic movement. And you can just dance the pose as you like. The arms can touch and rest against the thighs or not. They could be unsupported, whatever feels good for you here. The next time you come forward, you can rest the forearm to the thigh, or your choice to a block to the inside or outside, wherever your pose wants to take you this morning for an extended side angle. That top arm, options. If you have any shoulder issues at all, don't bring the arm overhead. You can leave the arm by the side or behind you to open the front shoulder, or you can reach overhead. Good. From this pose, you'll straighten the front leg. And you can, again, choose what you're doing with the arm here. We're going to come into some version of triangle pose, which is also sometimes called pyramid, which in nursery school circles is also called like the little teacup. I'm a little teacup. So see what this pose brings up for you. Triangles evoke a sense of harmony, integration, beauty, balance. Let's play with our half moon pose because we can. You'll bend the front knee. You'll look forward. If you have a block, maybe that block steps forward of your front foot. You're gonna step that back foot in a little closer just to help you get set up for your balance. And when you're ready, all that weight comes into the front foot. You can keep your gaze down to begin. Maybe that top hip rolls open, open, open a little more. So you're still getting that inner leg stretch. Maybe that top arm comes up overhead. And just see where your balance is at today. See where your joy is at. What if you just called this joyful pose? What if you call this silly falling, flying pose? It'd be very different. Because then the whole intention of the pose is to feel silly and like you're flying and falling, rather than gripping for dear life to try to prove something about how strong or balanced you are, right? You might give yourself more permission and compassion if you renamed this pose in that way. All right, from here, you're gonna rebend the front knee, step that back foot down. One last little warrior here. One last reverse of that warrior. which is also sometimes called pretty pose. Good. You can straighten the front leg. You can turn all of your 10 toes forward and take your hands to your hips. Belly is drawing in nice and strong. Shoulders are down, elbows hug wide, to the sideways. And just fold forward with a flat back here. Yep. Nice flat back. Notice that instantly engages like the inner thighs, this feeling of pulling up, and the pelvic floor is quite engaged here. Lengthen yourself forward out of your hips. You can even use your hands to push your hips back and feel the rest of everything lifting. So this is nice and strong core. And then allow yourself to drop the head low, fingertips to the floor, and just fold. Good. From here, just turn the toes outward, like on a 45-degree angle, and bend the knees deeply and come up into a goddess pose. Now, very different naming this goddess or naming this horse stance. In martial arts, this is horse stance. I'm going to ride my horse and spread my legs and grip inwardly to hold myself on my horse. But in yoga, we call this goddess pose. And just like on the cave walls, just like we can imagine our mother, our matriarch, Rachel, squatting along the way on their travels and birthing. This is like the birthing pose. Yeah. So how does this feel holy or sacred? How does it feel hard? Does that evoke for you memories of your own birthing experiences? And all of that mix of emotion in that experience. Good. You can straighten the legs, turn your toes forward, walk your feet in closer, shake that out. See if I remember what we did on this side to do that on the other side. Please come off mute and remind me if I miss anything. Okay, let's start this way. We'll get back into our down dog to start, because I know we started from that, but let's take a big breath in, reach to the sky. As you exhale, float down over the legs. Inhale to a flat back. Good. Keep that back nice and strong, and step both feet either straight into your down dog, or you can come into a plank first. You can take any variations you want from your plank. If you need more strength building today, more push-ups, if you need a side plank, whatever you feel like. So just hang out and do what you need. And then we'll meet in our downward facing dog again. In your down dog, can you come back to that present moment? Wonderful moment. How does that change this down dog? Just being aware that this moment is absolutely wonderful. All right, left leg reaches high to the sky. And you're going to circle through that ankle. And then bend the knee and circle the knee around to really flush out the hip. Re-extend that leg, look forward between your hands. And you're going to step that left foot all the way up, coming into warrior two. Yeah. So the back foot turns out, the front, get a nice wide stance, bending deeply into that front knee. Yeah. Good. And just start with your warrior. Now, what if you didn't call this warrior? What else might you call this?
We did some crescents also.
Did we do crescents?
Yeah.
Which one? I don't
Talked
remember.
about, we talked about crescent versus, oh, shoot, lunge. Lunge versus crescent.
Yeah. Oh, we did lunges again on the second side. I thought we
I
finished our
don't think
lunges on both.
did we do them on the left already?
I think we did. I think we were up to the warriors. But one way I like to think about this pose often and teach about this pose is about being centered between the past and the future. It's very different than warrior, completely different understanding of this pose. But if I am here in the center and this represents my past that's brought me here and this represents my future, I'm looking towards the, like, which direction am I looking? Am I looking backward towards the past? Am I looking out towards what's yet to come? But here's where I'm standing, right? I'm not leaning yet, but when we dance it, we do. So here we go. Now we're dancing between all of our past and dancing towards what am I leaning towards, right? Very, very different way to understand what this pose might hold for you as a gift, as a davar nistar, right? A hidden concealed something within this pose for you. Good. And then you're going to find some variation of the extended version of this pose, leaning over that front leg or fingertips to the floor, block. Yeah. If you're in a deeper version, you're still trying to find the twist where that lower waist is lifting up off the front thigh. You're not collapsing. It's lifting and it's twisting open, so your top ribs are trying to reach back. You're still wide across the shoulders and the collarbone. Good. Breathe here. Check in with what you needed to receive from today's practice. Is there something in this pose that can help you receive what that need was? From here, you'll straighten through the front leg, but again, not locking or hyperextending. So tiny bend, that's just making sure you're engaging all the muscles around the knee to protect. And then again, leaning, little twist, but leaning forward. Triangle pose or whatever else you would like to think of this pose as. Good. You can rebend the front knee. Come on up. Let's reverse it one more time. All right, we're getting ready for that half moon balance on the other side. So you can gently step the back foot a little closer down to the floor or a block. And as you're ready, lifting off and playing. So there's a book out called Permission to Feel by this head of the Yale Child Center. And it's all about the social emotional learning, how we need to expand our vocabulary for how we feel. Like we have such basic vocabulary. I feel happy, I feel sad, right? But there's hundreds of words that can describe a feeling, and each word is nuanced. Each word is naming your experience slightly differently. So notice what you're feeling, your mind state, your energy state in this pose. And try to be more nuanced about that. Maybe I'm feeling curious. Maybe I'm feeling brave. Maybe I'm feeling encouraged, giddy, right? Our vocabulary could be so expanded, and that expands our experience. Good. All right. I don't remember what we did from here. What did we do from here? Oh, we came into the fan and the goddess, but we don't need to repeat that. So why don't you jump your feet together? We don't need to repeat it because it's not like a bilateral body thing. It's like we did that. All right. Let's see where we're at. 10:04. We're going to bring the pose down onto the ground in a moment. I want us to do one more standing pose. So let's do a standing dancer pose. Okay, so the Sanskrit for dancer pose is actually Natarajasana, and Nataraj is one of the names for Lord Shiva. And Nataraj is the name that literally means the Lord of the dance. And it's this idea that the whole world and existence and life is a dance, and it's circular, right? There are cycles. That's very different than just saying I'm doing dancer pose. Like I'm actually in the cycles of my life, and I recognize that certain things are born and certain things die, and things come around and go around. So find your standing up nice and samastiti, balanced, feeling even, feeling strong, mountain, Tadasana. And then we're finding this arcing energy out of that hip. Good. And then whatever your dancer, wherever it wants to take you, you can make some nice mudra, hand gesture, right? Like an offering. Jacob returning to the land, to his, that is coming full cycle after all of those experiences of his life so far. 20 plus years is a long time. A lot of life happens. And now he's returning to his brother, to his parents' land. What is the emotion of that sense of returning and beginning a new cycle again? Yeah. Good. Release it out. Do whatever you want to get ready for the second side. And then you'll take your second side. So, yeah. So in your own life, what are you maybe at the beginning of? Or what are you at the ending of? Or where are you in the middle? Sandwich generation. And what does it mean to dance with that? All right, release it as you're ready. We'll bring the practice down onto the ground. You're gonna come onto your back. And we're just gonna take some nice, easy bridges. So your feet are on the floor, planted, especially the big toes. And you're just gonna lift yourself up here. Now see what you need here. If you just wanna stay here and that feels good, that's great. If you wanna take a supported bridge by bringing a block under the sacrum, so it's not on the upper, like under the back where you're creating that big arch, it's lower, it's under the bone in the low back so that you can rest. That feels nice. If what you need is more movement or flow, you can do some like lifting and lowering. You can use the core to do that, like really hug the belly in. If you need even stronger practice today, you can lift one leg up and play with that, right? Whatever is what you need in your practice today. What does a bridge bring up for you? The idea of a bridge. Where on that bridge are you? Are you about to cross? Did you cross over? Are you somewhere in the center looking out over the river? And you can release out of your bridge. Take your feet wide and let your knees knock together. Your arms can come by your sides. And we're just gonna windshield wiper the knees one side or the other, just opening up those outer hips. All right, Let's just take a reclining figure 4 stretch, aka pigeon, dove, many ways of saying this. You're going to take your right ankle, bring it over the top of the left thigh, and then lift the left foot off the floor, bringing that knee closer towards your chest, and finding a clasp that works for you. You might just want to hug the outside of the leg today. Maybe you always thread the hand through and behind there, but maybe today you want to hold the knee, or you want to, whatever you want to draw this in. And maybe that actually inspires you to rename this pose something else. This could be like a taking care of your inner child pose. And then you'll switch sides. All right, take the next minute or two to do anything else you need for your practice, and then allow yourself to settle into your Shavasana pose. So Shavasana, again, goes back to Lord Shiva, which is all about cycles of life and death, of beginnings and endings. So Shavasana literally means corpse pose, like you're just completely surrendering. But we like to say it's more relaxation pose. In Hebrew, when I teach Jewishly, I say it's menucha, which is rest, right? It's kind of like that experience of Shabbat. Like, what if I stop doing and I just allow myself to be and be supported and rest? So you can come onto your back and just take a few moments to breathe. And if your mind is very chatty, you always have a choice about that. You can listen to what your mind is saying. Maybe there's something important there that's trying to get your attention. You can also choose to kind of shush the ongoing chatter and replace that with words that you feel empower you in this moment. It could be a single word, it could be a phrase. You can also use the simple word relax, directed at specific muscles or organs in your body. Ask your feet to relax. Ask your shoulders to relax. Take a moment to finish your practice with gratitude. Who and what are you grateful for in this moment? And adding gratitude for your body and breath. You can wiggle your fingers and toes, however you want to come out of the practice. Bring yourself to sit. Shalom b'mama, Huya Shalom, Aleinu, Ve'al Yisrael, Ve'al Yoshvei Tevel, Ve'emru, Amen. May God grants us peace, peace in our own lives, peace in our families, our community, peace in the world. Thank you all for joining this morning. I hope that gave you something that you needed.
Thank you, thank you.
You're very
Thank you,
welcome.
Robin. I am thankful for you for doing this.
I'm thankful for all of you guys being here, so I have people to teach to.
Robin, when you were talking about the soldier looking forward, back, I was thinking about the tarot cards. Or maybe it wasn't the soldier, but I pictured the tarot cards.
I
It's
love how
amazing.
that's coming into your consciousness. That's great.
Yes, yes.
Very nice.
And this is so
Have a
much
great
better
day.
than doing your tapes are wonderful, but this is just so much better.
I'm glad. Glad.
Wonderful class. Have
you.
a wonderful day, everybody.
So welcome.
Robin.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, Kara.
Thank you,
Bye,
Robin.
honey. Talk to you
I
later.
love the switch
great
from
day.
wonderful to full of wonder.
Yeah,
I found that to be really interesting.
thank you. That came to me in that moment, and I thought of that. So the wonderful moment comes from Thich Nhat Hanh's teaching. That's one of his breathing practices, that you inhale present moment and you exhale wonderful moment. That you're really bringing yourself into this moment with a state of wonder, and that's why I switched it. And I was like, oh, full of wonder. Yeah.
Yeah, it really made a difference. And I thought it was so interesting.
And you
Awesome.
really worked me out. I ended up having to change clothes. I got so hot working.
Good. That's great.
Thank you.
This is
Thank
one
you.
of the few classes that I felt that I with a few modifications that I was able to do. So I really I feel good all over.
I'm so glad. That's great.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye.